So the last time I talked about One Piece, I talked about Marineford, and oh boy, has a lot changed since then. So before I go and jump straight into what I've got to say about the highly anticipated Wano Country Arc, let's quickly go over everything else that happened post time skip after Marineford from where I last left off in a very quick 3-word review. Fishman Island, I expected more. Punk Hazard, absolutely dogshit. Zoe, short but sweet. Whole Cake Island, very, very tasty. Mwah. Levelly, is hype. And then we're on to the Wano Country Arc. Sorry. Wano Country Arc! And so with that out of the way, if you could ever so kindly leave a like on this video and subscribe as well if you're not ready to become a member of the Senpai Squad. And as always, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of Wano thus far. So with Wano, I'll have to say this has to be one of the most highly anticipated arcs in the series to date. Surely. Wano in the fight against Kaido has been pretty much what everything post time skip has been building up towards. In fact, it is basically what everything post Marineford has been building up to this exact arc. And on top of all that, from the outside looking in like I originally was, the fan base, the One Piece hardcore ultras, have given this arc an incredible reputation. I mean, seeing all the hype of Wano was one of the main reasons I actually started to read One Piece. Also, quick fun fact, quick side note, the actual main reason I started to read One Piece was because I saw on Twitter the scene of Sanji leaving the Straw Hat Crew in a Whole Cake Island, and like I cried. I manly cried. I did a manly cry. I thought it was absolutely incredible, and straight away I thought, that's the series for me. But anyway, I can now finally say that I'm fully caught up to One Piece. I've experienced all there is to experience of Wano so far, and I think it's been around 70 to probably coming up to about 80 chapters deep at the minute. But now I can start to formulate my own opinions on the arc and not just be part of the group that are on the outside looking in. And I'll be honest, you guys know I'm always 100% honest with my opinions on the internet. It's not what I expected, at least not yet. However, it's not been bad at all, not in the slightest. It still feels as though it's still in that early initial setup mode. And I firmly believe that all of this setup we're getting will 100% pay off massively, because holy crap, there's so much going on. So much, in fact, that I quite often have to refer to either a friend or the wiki or something that I may potentially have missed out on when I initially read through the series. And the first positive thing I've got to say about Wano is thank you so much for Oda for making my job easier for cutting up Wano into little pieces by actually including a visualization of when each act ends, because every long arc always is split up into acts, but you never actually know when the exact split occurs. But Wano, thank you so much for actually showing the visualization of each split, because it makes taking notes so much easier. So let's start with Act 1. Act 1 is the initial setup for the future setup, which sounds weird, and you might be thinking, damn, that's a lot of setup. And to be honest, yeah, it is, and I'll be honest, it's something I'm quite surprised is so commonly accepted amongst the community, because nowadays when everyone wants everything immediately, everything's so on demand, you can just swap from series to series. If it's not an instant gratification, a lot of people don't want to hear about it. But thankfully, I'm not one of those people. Like I said, Wano may not be what I expected, or maybe not quite what I wanted right now, but I've still stuck with it and enjoyed it. This first act introduces all of the new and old returning faces that are going to be playing a prominent role throughout the entirety of Wano, and my god, there's a lot. You've got to be good with both names and faces in Wano, because there's just so much, and to be honest, I'm really not the guy for that. And I won't be going into huge detail on everything that goes on in each act, because like I said, there's so much. I just don't have the time to be going through a 1 hour long review of Wano, because at the end of the day, this isn't supposed to be an in-depth analysis or review or anything like that. I'm not this One Piece mega lord Wikipedia page. That's not me. I just always wanted to keep a little log whenever I hit a landmark in One Piece, so I could come back and see what my initial thoughts were. and that's literally all I'm doing in this video. But what I did enjoy from this initial first act was Ultima. She's one of the few Wano residents actually that I really care for, because for the most part, unfortunately, I don't really care or have that much of an emotional attachment to Wano or the residents of Wano more specifically, which sort of leads into my main and probably only criticism of Wano at the minute, and that's that there's a lack of Straw Hats. You could argue that this has been a recurring factor throughout the majority of the post-time skip era, but the story definitely doesn't feel like the Straw Hats' wacky, crazy adventure anymore. It's definitely took some focus away from their adventure and sort of put it more into the whole of the One Piece world instead, which for some people I can imagine is not a problem. They're probably so heavily invested in One Piece that they'd rather get this insane world building as opposed to sticking around with Luffy, and part of me is like that. You'll notice when I get onto some later bits of this arc that I do thoroughly find the outer workings of what is going on in the One Piece world thoroughly interesting, but my number one interest throughout all of it will always be Luffy and the Straw Hats and what they get up to. And unfortunately, I just think the Scabbards, they're sort of like the Straw Hat replacement in this arc. It's not necessarily a replacement, because the Straw Hats still do play a prominent role in the arc, but the Scabbards, I feel like, and the residents of Wano are taking that front seat at the minute. And like I said, unfortunately, I don't have that emotional attachments to them. I don't think the Scabbards are a worthy replacements of the Straw Hats. Again, replacements I'm using very loosely before anyone jumps onto me saying they're not direct replacements. The Straw Hats are still here, fully aware of that, but I just don't think that they live up to the Straw Hats' potential. And like I said, I only really care for 2-3 of the Scabbards maybe, which is a shame because I'm sure I probably should be having a much deeper bond with these characters. Anyway, on to the other things I liked. I liked the sumo fight. Yeah, I know, I've seen the common consensus on Twitter and people probably be like,
you don't like the Scabbards, but you like the sumo fight?
And I understand that is commonly known on the internet as a shit opinion. But yeah, I liked it because A, I read this in bulk, and no matter what you say, the way you first indulge yourself into the read-through of anything will always affect your outlook on what it is you're reading. If you read Wano week by week, I can 1000% guarantee you'll have such different opinions to me. But if you binge read it all at once for your very first time, and there's not that week-long break in between everything to indulge and digest or theorize or have to wait if it's a slow portion, you don't have any of that when you binge reading. And for that reason, I quite enjoyed the sumo fight because, like I was saying before, it felt like Luffy. Another thing that was revealed in Act 1, and probably one of, if not the biggest reveal in Act 1, is the reveal of the time travel, which honestly, A, blew my mind, and B, was executed really well in my opinion. I recently said this in a recent Black Clover video, but time-based powers, especially in shonen or more or less any piece of fiction really, they're a massive 50-50 risk. If you don't get it right, especially when it comes to time travel, you could potentially run the risk of tainting everything you've built up to. If done well though, well, I mean, you get an extremely intriguing plot device that can change the story in many ways and so opens up so many creative doors that would affect the story in ways that wouldn't usually be possible. And as long as it makes sense in the story that it's in, then you can usually get away with it. And with Devil Fruits, and with it being one of the main reasons I love Devil Fruits as a power system so much, is that something as crazy as time travel doesn't really seem that crazy. These last 2 points though, I think were my personal favourite parts of this entire act. And honestly, it was such an incredible way to bow out of Act 1 of Wano. Luffy vs Kaido Part 1, albeit short, was probably what we all came to see in Wano, and it delivered. Yes, Luffy got absolutely flattened. Yes, Kaido washed this kid like he had the fairy liquid fruit. But this moment does end up with us seeing Luffy get put into prison and us seeing an old familiar face for the first time in a long time, that being Kid, who we know shares a similar enough goal to what Luffy and Law have. But we also get the return of Gecko Moria. Now, listen, I'm not Gecko Moria's biggest fan at all. However, part of me almost felt sorry for him after I saw what happened to Absalom. Now, this whole bit was so mystifying and interesting, and it's one of the things which you appreciate in One Piece's crazy world building. But like I said, although I love the story mainly focusing around the Straw Hats, things like this, the little chapters, which you get every now and again, which just stray away from the story you've been following and show a huge reveal somewhere out in the One Piece world, they are what I live for. And I think it's the infrequency that actually makes me enjoy them a bit more as to when it's more of a longer stretch of straying away from the Straw Hats. I mean, I think you sort of appreciate the change more and sort of gravitate to the impact that scene will actually have on the story, like this one. Because boy, did it have impact. Moria, we presume anyway, joins Blackbeard's crew. Now this is massive for Wano because we know Blackbeard now knows what's going on in Wano, and he's ready to pounce. Just like how in Marineford he was waiting ready to pounce to take a former Yonko's devil fruit, is he going to be doing the same thing in Wano? Yeah, that ending to Act 1 had huge Marineford vibes. But now onto Act 2. So with Act 2, I want to say we're first properly introduced to the arc's main antagonist, which is Orochi. And although I think we all wanted and expected Kaido to be the main antagonist of Wano, I actually think Orochi is a pretty solid antagonist considering the circumstances that the arc is under. He's the man ruling over Wano, sort of under the protection of Kaido, who sort of runs it as well from the background. And he essentially is just a classic evil old ruler of the land. On top of that though, loads of other things also start to take shape. And this is when it starts to settle in that, yeah, Wano's here for the long term because we're still deep in setup. We also got a very controversial moment with Sanji, and that was him using his raid suit. Now I found this quite a weird move for Oda, if I'm honest. Oda sort of spends so much time letting things such as a moment like this build up throughout the story. It goes on for so long, usually until we get that big revealing moment, that it felt really rapid anyway, with Sanji's reveal of using the raid suit. It's like, here's an analogy for you. Usually, Oda, when it comes to moments like this, he will pop his dinner on in a slow cooker and let it build and build and goes on for ages and ages, and in the end, he reaps the rewards because it tastes lovely. However, when it came to Sanji using the raid suit, it felt like he thought, no slow cooker, we're going to pop it in the oven for 20 minutes, get out, nom noms, beautiful. I've just realised I've used a food analogy about Sanji. I'm low-key proud of that. But yeah, it did feel very quick for Oda to reveal a big major power-up like this, and maybe this is just an after effect of me reading it all within like a week. I think I read Whole Cake Island and Wano, so maybe that's the case and I didn't sort of grasp the sense of time that I would usually have gotten if, say, I read it weekly. But I do think it fits into Sanji's character pretty well. People don't like this though. They feel like it goes against everything that Sanji built up during Whole Cake Island and the ordeal that he had against his family. I, on the other hand, think it's the opposite. I think it actually builds more onto Sanji's character than it takes away. That being said, someone needs to get it off him because Nami is not safe while he's got that thing. This is also the act in which Big Mom rejoins the story, and my god, was I excited to see her back. The amnesia plot was interesting. It felt a little random, a little convenient almost, but it was still a nice little bit of fan service, I suppose you could say, in a way that we got to see what a potential good Big Mom as a Straw Hat member could be. Luffy also has a great training arc, and I want to say this is Luffy's first on-screen training arc. And this was another thing I saw people say that they didn't really like, whereas I actually really enjoyed it. But when it comes to training arcs, they're a bit like what I said when it comes to time-based abilities. They can work both ways. Get it wrong and you've got yourself a boring arc that honestly no one wants to sit through. This is how I look at it. A training arc is supposed to feel like a chore for the actual character in the story, not for the reader. When it actually starts to feel like a chore for the reader as well, that's when it becomes bad in my opinion. Zoro also gets a new sword in this act, which is just like, yes, we need more Zoro in Wano, because I can't wait to learn more about Zoro, because I want to say he's probably the Straw Hat, to be honest, that we know least about. So I can only hope that moments like this are what instigate the tale, the amazing story that is going to be about Roronoa Zoro. But before we go sailing into Act 3, Big Mom, Kaido, holy shit. Now this has to be the moment in Wano that I have gravitated towards and take the most interest of by an absolute astronomical landslide. Now I'm going to say this right now, I don't think this alliance will stand the test of time. It was formed during a drunken reunion, and I think by the time they both sober up, they will come to their senses. However, I don't think it's going to be as simple as that. They just wake up and think, oh, Kaido, listen, that thing last night between us. Oh, yeah, Lin, yeah. I think I remember, yeah. Yeah, well, listen, it's not you. Well, I mean, it is you. I hate you to pieces. I hate your guts. But I just don't think it's going to work out. Oh, well, I mean, I suppose. Anyway, need a lift home? Yeah, nothing like that. I think they will work together, but I think behind the scenes, behind each other's backs, they're going to be going after each other. Hopefully that makes sense. I think they'll both try to stick close by to each other while they've got this opportunity, but do it in order to actually try and kill the other as opposed to actually working together. I think when the big final fight actually goes down, it will make for a really interesting dynamic of a fight of Lin and Kaido versus Luffy and Wano, but at the same time, Lin versus Kaido. Regardless if anything like that even ends up coming into fruition, like I said, it's definitely been my highlight of the entire arc so far. On to Act 3. Now, I'm just going to blitz through what I think of Act 3 because it's mostly formulated of the flashback, and that is obviously Oden's story, Oden's legendary flashback. And I'm 50-50 when it comes to this, because I was always going to have a problem with it, because it's like I said to you, I just don't have that emotional connection with Wano that I think the majority of the One Piece community share. However, it was still heavily jam-packed, full of scenes that you never really expect to see because they're so integrated into the actual history of One Piece. You almost feel like you've witnessed something special. You feel special for witnessing such historic moments in One Piece. Such as seeing the Rocks pirates and a prime Whitebeard, and then you got Goldie Roger and Lin and Garp and all of these incredible legendary pirates. And then obviously, of course, you've got Oden as well. Now, I don't dislike Oden, but I definitely don't love him either. However, I really enjoyed his death. Not in that morbid way. I didn't hate him that much. But I liked it because of how much they expanded actually on Kaido. I think having Oden die this incredible honourable death, which obviously Kaido is very interested in having himself, having that happen at the actual hands of Kaido, I thought was a really beautiful moment in the plot. And it does explain some of Kaido's characteristics. For example, like when Oden says to Kaido before he dies, make sure you tell my story with your drinks at night. Things like that actually really propelled Kaido's character more than it did for Oden's character, in my opinion. And I can really come to appreciate scenes like that. And with the death of Oden comes the end of the flashback, or what I presume is the end of the flashback. There will not be much of it left. In fact, this probably goes out after the new chapter, in which it probably is 100% wrapped up. But I hope you enjoyed this long ass messy discussion about Wano, because I listen, catching up to One Piece has been such an adventure. It's been incredible. There's been incredible highs like Marineford, and such absolutely horrible lows like Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard is my least favourite arc I've ever read in a battle shonen. I hated that stuff. But overall, One Piece, so happy to be caught up. I won't be making weekly reviews because if you haven't told already from this, haven't gathered from this video, I'm not the highest intellectual when it comes to discussing One Piece, but whenever incredible landmark moments happen, I will be keeping up my little mini-series about One Piece discussions as they go on. Like I said, leave a like, subscribe as well if you're not already, and I'll be seeing you guys in another video very, very soon. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I have to say that again, especially if you've stuck out till the very end. You are honestly incredible. and mean so much to me. But see you guys in another video, but until then, peace.